I want to go to the Mr. Cohen tapes, the attorney for the president, like John Dean. I guess he has tapes. I want you to link the outcome of Mr. Manafort to the likely outcome of Mr. Cohen, given these damaging tapes.
Well, look, there's no doubt that this raid on Michael Cohen's office and hotel room is hugely significant, potentially. They were not expecting this. Trump and the White House were not expecting this at all. What does Michael Cohen have? How does that change the course of the investigation? We don't know what Mueller's got from that. We don't know what, ostensibly, this was a raid by the Southern District of New York on a referral from Mueller. How much are they cooperating and sharing information or not? It's not entirely clear. But this could change the course of the investigation. Not only that, we understand that they were looking for information related to Michael Cohen's payoffs of both this porn star as well as whatever negotiations went on with this former Playboy model. But he's obviously sitting on much more. He was Trump's personal attorney, Trump org attorney for a decade. He was his go-to fixer on so many issues. I mean, he traveled to the former Soviet Republic of Georgia, to the former Soviet Republic of Azerbaijan. He was much more than just a lawyer. He was his go-to fix-it guy.
Right. What does a grizzled pro like you, with all your investigative reporting on Mr. Manafort, how do you respond when you see the American media talk about Mr. Cohen flipping, this phrase, flipping? How do you interpret that?
Well, it's very similar to the relationship between Rick Gates, who worked with Paul Manafort for years and, Manafort was his mentor. It's a very similar, close relationship between Cohen and Trump. Trump really made Cohen, gave him, everything he's got in many respects. And no one expected Rick Gates to flip on Paul Manafort. But when faced with the full power of the Special Counsel's office and everything that he had on him, Rick Gates did indeed flip. Whether or not we'll see the same thing happen with Michael Cohen remains to be seen. How strong of a case do they have on him? Yeah. But I would argue that the DOJ had to approve this raid on Michael Cohen's office because of the unusual nature of, getting documents that might surpass this client-attorney privilege. So obviously they've got a very strong case on him, and they would not have done that unless they've got material that could most likely lead to some sort of criminal indictment.
Stephanie, what have we figured out a little more about what the timeline for a possible military strike in Syria from the U.S. would be?
Well, I think there was an effort to dial back the rhetoric, both in terms of what Trump said, saying, I never said when we would strike or even if. Again, Defense Secretary Jim Mattis also dialed back, saying we need to make sure that we can prove that this was the Assad regime behind this. And I think there's a growing recognition that military strikes certainly won't change the course of the civil war in Syria and do carry huge risks because of Russian and Iranian forces on the ground and what kind of, if they're in harm's way, what kind of reaction that would result in.